All right, greetings, everyone. Let's welcome you to another episode of State of the Real Estate Market. It's yours truly, Chris Brown, bringing this information to you on a monthly basis. We're going to make sure that we are good to go with our cameras. All right. Got that one, got that one. All right. So, one more check. Make sure we give you guys the full. Yes, we are ready. We are ready. So, whoop, can't do that again. So, guys, welcome once again to a state of the real estate market with yours truly. This is November of 2025. Good information to go over. You guys have been asking me, I've been getting messages regarding the real estate market. Should we buy? Should I sell? Should I invest? It's so much that's going on right now, guys. So, we'll go ahead and dive on into everything as we move forward with this episode. Greatly appreciate you guys. And before we move forward, I want to say happy holidays to everyone, those who are traveling during this time. If you're watching it live right now or even the replay, happy holidays, safe travels. You know, it's a time of year that we have a lot to be thankful for. This past year, actually been able to I've been exposed to a lot of life, and just the, the things that we think that we typically go through, and we go through a lot, lifing. but just be thankful. There's truly a lot to be thankful for. I'm a big advocate of health is wealth, being grateful for what you have and having the glasses, grateful glasses, as I call it, looking through life through the scope of gratefulness. So I encourage you guys to do so as well. But I know you guys want the latest and greatest of the real estate market, so I'm gonna go ahead and make sure I got my notes. I feel like a full reporter today, so I'll be going through my notes here and making sure you guys are getting the best of the best. So let's dive on in. Let's see here. All right. So, guys, state of real estate market. If you haven't done so already, be sure to like, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you guys are watching this on a different platform, we do have a YouTube channel where a lot of updates are being done there. So be sure to like, subscribe. This channel is not only about buying, selling, and investing in real estate, but we also talk about building generational wealth as well as different hot entrepreneur topics that may be going on. So be sure to stay tuned. Want to keep you in the loop of what's what. So be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel so that you can stay with the latest and greatest. Okay, so with that being said, a couple of takeaways from this month's episode. First one, we're going to take a look at the national housing market. Take a quick snapshot of that, see what's going on. We're going to also take a look at the Florida market. Take a little deep dive with that, see what's going on in the Florida market. If you guys are where I am in the Tampa Bay area of Florida, so I always like to give an insight of that. Then we're also going to have a little chat about the commissions and buyer agreements for 2025. This is something that's been going on for for a few months now officially. A lot of people have made this shift regarding the commissions and buyer agreements. If you guys are buying or selling real estate, there's a different process. So if you haven't bought or sold a home in over a year, the process is a little bit different. There's a few new documents that's out there, but a lot of people have been asking me questions about this. So I'm gonna take a stab at it and give you guys a general idea of what's going on. And then ultimately, if you still have questions, you can always contact me directly. We're also going to talk about the rates, the 50-year mortgage, as well as the portable mortgage. So this is a big topic that's been discussed. It has been coming up in the news, and I've definitely received insight on this. Other individuals having questions regarding, 50-year mortgage. Does that mean less payment? We're going to get into that. Does it mean affordability? We're going to get into that. So, commercial stress and opportunities. Every market you're always looking at not only the residential, but you're also looking at the commercial. There's opportunities on both sides, and also giving you some ideas of what's happening in my local market, the Tampa Bay market, with a couple of shifts, new decisions moving forward with a couple of big organizations. Does that impact the commercial, or does it not, or is it long-term decisions that are being made? Um, Something that we'll discuss. And then obviously we always talk about a little bit more. And if you ever have any additional questions, I appreciate everyone's questions and insights. Feel free to send that to me. I always like to have those answered through the conversations that we have, especially with the real estate market updates. And then if you guys are part of any of I usually get a lot of questions also regarding investment properties and investment ideas. So that usually comes up a lot. And I get those messages, and I usually answer those in those different groups that I have available for everyone. So you probably heard people saying nothing is selling, but the latest news tells a different story. And that's been very true. Been very, very true. So taking a jab at the national news, existing home sales in October ticked up about 1.2% to an annual pace of roughly 4.1 million. Still below the old normal, which was about 5.2 million, but moving in the right direction. So still moving in that right direction, increasing, It may not be like this in the increase, like a hockey stick, but it is still increasing. And that's a topic that we talked about before, letting you guys know. Some people are saying, oh, the market's not great. It's not moving like it was fantasy land. That's back when the pandemic was around. Sales are also up year over year, and inventory is up around 11% versus last year, giving buyers more choices without crashing prices. So when you have more inventory, we've had this discussion before. When you have more inventory, a lot of times that's going to start triggering, giving your buyers more options. So when your buyers have more options, they have leverage. When it's the lower inventory, buyers don't have the leverage. It's more of the sellers having the leverage, and they can request more uh, for their homes and do less for someone to purchase their home. So always keep that in mind when we're talking about these markets. Median price is up just about 2% year over year. See, that's why you always got to dive deeper when we go over this information. So appreciation is slower and more sustainable, not the crazy spikes that we saw in 2021. And that's that hockey stick. You guys know the shape of a hockey stick. It goes up and then it just shoots straight up. And that's what we experienced. And there's a couple of videos where I was actually kind of predicting it. It didn't happen the way that I expected it to, but it did hockey stick up. Whereas because it was low interest rates, we had low inventory, and if no one kind of predicted the pandemic, but that triggered even more of a spike in placing us into that seller's market that we were all living in that fantasy land itself. So what does it mean for us? What does it mean for like the typical person? So for my sellers, it's no longer list any price and get 10 different offers. We remember those days. You need pricing plus presentation. You really have to focus on that. Your pricing as a seller, and then also the presentation of the home. So pricing is typically going to attract your different buyers to the home. And then obviously your presentation can be online presentation can be in person. A lot of people are asking me, hey, should I paint my home, fresh new colors? You definitely should freshen it up if you can, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you're getting that traffic. If you're getting a bunch of traffic and no one's making any offers, then there's probably something else that's going on. Maybe it may be the physical in-person presentation, and may even be the pricing of that as well. That's why in this market right here, you really need to work with someone that's a bit skilled, someone that's staying on top of getting that property sold and understanding what the requests are in the market. And that's what it comes down to. For buyers, slightly more leverage and more options, but you still need to be prepared because good homes still move. There's still some homes out there that still need repairs. They're not updated, but if you have a good home, those homes are still going to be movable. They're still going to move, especially, and a good home is not just physically the home itself, but it's also the area. It's also the community. And that's when I say good home. A lot of people is like, oh, my home's updated and this and that. But okay, well, what about the area? Is it a high demand area? How's the community? How's the walk rate? That's a big thing. I've been talking to people about the walk rate, especially when it pertains to properties that are closer to downtown. And people who live so close to downtown, they have that option. So always keep that in mind. So a good home, those homes are still moving pretty quickly. And they're moving off of the market. They're not staying on the market as long as other properties are. So as you guys said, I went ahead and gave you guys some information that I came across in my research. This is from the NAR, Realtor.com. These are from different websites. Incredible resources that I always like to share with you guys. The national picture. Now, let's talk about what's happening right here in Florida. So that was the national side of things. Let's go ahead and talk about what's happening in Florida. So with Florida, that's the state that I'm in. I know a lot of people tune into this that may not be from Florida, but you may be thinking about moving to Florida or even investing in Florida. So that's why I get a lot of people that are outside of Florida that have an opportunity to either watch this live or even watch the replay of State of the Real Estate Market with yours truly, Chris Brown. So if you've been waiting for Florida to cool off a bit. But then this information here that I'm about to provide you may be just for you. So in October, Florida single family median price was about 411,000, slightly down versus last year. The condos and townhome median price was about 300K, which is down nearly 5% compared to last year. Now, there's a lot of caveat that comes to condos and townhomes. If you guys recall, Florida, about a little bit over a year from today's date, Florida experienced back-to-back hurricanes. So a lot of real estate was impacted, and some of the areas that received like a big impact were your condos and townhomes, because that's where you have those associations, and some people were a little hesitant because of assessments that were being done or needed to be done, and that does impact it. Moving forward, people start second guessing, especially when you're in the market where there's a lot of uncertainty already. So that added to the uncertainty. So I think that plays a big role in that 5% being nearly down 5% compared to last year, in my opinion. Month supply, roughly 5.1 months for single family homes, 9.3 months for condos, townhomes. That's a big shift towards a more balanced, even buyer leaning market. And that's where we were before. We were experiencing that seller's market. You got the seller's market. Now we're looking at more of that buyer's market, just because they're getting leverage now. Buyers are getting leverage in today's market. And there's other things that's happening that's out there, especially on the new construction side. The incentives, the interest rates buy downs that are being offered by, say, new construction. Um, it's a lot to compete for if you are willing to place your home on the market. There are different things that you may need to consider. If you have the upgrades in your home compared to another property, you may be selling that home, may not getting the full value of all of those upgrades. You may be able to buy down the interest rates for a potential buyer. So it's not necessarily dropping the price, but it may be able to provide additional incentives. So that's another key why you work with a professional that's a little bit more experienced. If you're thinking about selling your home, really consider the additional incentives that can be offered. It's not necessarily lowering the price of the home, but it is additional incentives that may be able to be offered for that particular property that's on the market. And parts of Florida, homes are taking a median of 98 days to sell, about 3 weeks longer than the US median, and nearly 44% of listings are doing price reductions. It's true. People are doing price reductions. Listings that I have right now are receiving price reductions. New construction, you're seeing price reductions. You're seeing hesitations on, you're seeing smaller margins on builders when they're building homes right now. You're seeing smaller margins because they realize that they may have to sell at a less price. Or you're even finding where there's situations where builders are being a little bit more creative. If they're doing, say, lease to own, whereas they can still eventually get the price that they want, they just may not get it today. But then you're also seeing other incentives, like I mentioned, the interest rate buy down, helping out with closing costs, different things that are out there. You even seen the banks do the same thing where they're saying zero closing costs. I deal with a couple of credit unions, and they're doing zero closing costs. So if you go through them, you get your mortgage through them, there's zero closing costs. So there's a lot of different incentives that are coming down the pipeline. If you are a buyer right now in today's market, there are opportunities out there. As a seller, you just need to be aware of these so that you can adjust how you're making your price as you're coming down, seeing really narrowing in on what you need out of your property, and then being a bit more flexible. You just don't place the property extra high and expect to give all of that, the incentives, and still get a price. You may have to come down and you may have to lower your expectations a little bit. But it's all about the market, understanding the market, and continuously reviewing the market. I do a weekly with my sellers. I do a weekly update where I'm looking at the market, seeing what properties have come onto the market, which properties have actually sold, That's a lot of back and forth in today's market. It's harder work. Put it that way. It's work. It's definitely work. You're definitely putting in work. So how does this translate once again for our buyers in Florida? Um, More time to decide. Yeah, you have more time to decide. You don't have to make a quick emotional decision. The ability to ask for closing costs. We talked about that. Repairs, rate buy downs. In today's market, you have that opportunity. Now, keep in mind, if it's a great property, you may not have as many opportunities with that. Now, as a seller, what does it mean for our sellers? You must price with the current comps. Yeah, stop looking at comps that were from the pandemic when your neighbors sold their home and you decided not to sell your home. Don't do that, sellers. So you got to take that and you're going to have to adjust your pricing and understand what that means. And we kind of already talked about that. So on a local angle from the Tampa Bay area, we're seeing a lot of adjustments. We're seeing here's a chart here. If you guys take a look on the screen, you're probably wondering what that is. So historic sales um, and the price range. So like we said, the median was around 411. So if you look at 400 to 500,000, if you guys look in the green, this is 2023. These are your home sales, and then you look at your 2024, and then you look at 2025. That's the kind of the purple color. So it gives you an idea where the number of home sales it's kind of decreased, and that's for that range of property. So obviously, we went over a few of the stats, but it gives you a better idea, especially what's going on in the Tampa Bay area. Properties are selling, but they're not selling ridiculously like they were before. Properties are staying on the market a bit longer than they have in the past, and that's just being realistic. Buyers, you have more options. I always tell the buyers, get ready so you don't. Oh, excuse me. It says stay ready so you don't have to get ready. If the opportunity may present itself, a seller may be willing to go ahead and drop the price, but if you're not in a position to take part in that because you didn't do your due diligence, you didn't go about and get your mortgage, become mortgage ready, you're going to miss out on some opportunities, especially as a buyer. All right, so new commission rules and buyer agreements. So a lot of people, check this up here. So a lot of people have been asking me about this new commission rules and buyer agreements. What changes? Um, how does that impact and how has it impacted 2025? So this has been a guideline. Like I said, some people have adopted this much earlier than others, but this is how the new process somewhat looks like. So you may have heard commissions are changing or agents aren't getting paid the same way. Let's clear things up a little bit. So I'm gonna give it to you in plain English. What is actually happening. So, following the NAR settlement, compensation details can no longer be advertised in MLS the way it used to be. So, the way that commissions were advertised in the MLS, if you didn't have access to the MLS, it's over your head. But access to the MLS, how they advertise commissions, they can't do it the same way. Written broker agreements are now required before touring homes, and they must spell out the services that they're actually going to provide. So a lot of people, if you are a buyer, you're in the market and you're working with a real estate professional, you may find that they may ask you to sign, they call it a BBA, buyer broker agreement. Basically, it's going to outline the services that they're going to provide, how much the agent actually gets paid, who is actually responsible for paying that commission. So a lot of times people purchase homes and they're like, oh, well, the seller's going to pay all of the commissions. How that's been rearranged, that still is somewhat true, but then it's also confirming it as a buyer. If you feel that you're receiving the services and you want to work with this individual, let's make sure that they get paid for the services that they do offer and that they do provide you. Okay. At the end of the day, they wanted to make sure that this change um, is consumer focused. So it's being consumer focused, and I think that was some of the concerns that was out there. Some folks, it only takes one or two people to do things the wrong way, and then it impacts the whole industry. So, so they had to make some changes, and this is some of the changes that came into play. Um, how to position yourself. If you're a buyer, typically, I mean, you deserve to know exactly what you're paying and why and when you hire someone. If you're paying for something, this is what you're paying for. So if you're hiring a real estate professional to work with you, you want to know what they're going to do for you, what services they're going to actually provide for you. You want to make sure that, typically when you're purchasing a home, there's different phases, whether it's becoming, negotiations, the inspection aspect, inspection strategies, the local knowledge. You probably want to work with somebody that understands what's going on. If there's new attractions coming to the area, someone to be able to tell you about, how close you are to your job, how close you are to schools, the convenience of being in a particular area, um, and then just the whole coordinating the whole transaction. There's a lot of paperwork. When you are buying a home or even selling a home, there is a lot of paperwork and there's a lot going on. And because you move one way, it can impact you another way. So always keep that in mind when you are going through this process, working with professionals um, that know what they're doing. They maybe have a well-supported team. And that's what I tell everyone. I have a well-supported team. I don't do everything by myself. I have a team. I partner with other organizations to help make the process as smooth as possible. And that's what I do. So always keep that in mind, whether it's commercial development or even on the residential side as well. So also for my sellers, just to bring a little clarity, to clarify that they can still offer concessions and contributions toward buyer agent compensation, but it's structured differently than it was before. So it was kind of like automatic, but now it's more spelled out as in how that is done. It's somewhat negotiated, but it's obviously negotiated up front before everything moves forward and signed off. So just keep that in mind. But like I said before, the emphasis of these changes is to make sure that it's more consumer focused, and so that you are clear of what's going on. It's bringing that clarity to the surface and making sure that people are acting as they're supposed to be acting through as a professional. This isn't just a hobby, this is a profession, and that's what they want to make sure people are taking. And then ultimately, if you guys still have questions and you're still scratching your head, be like, what is he talking about? Feel free to message me. I can walk you through the process. It's not a problem at all. Just message me. If you're watching this live or if you're watching this as a recording, feel free to do so. If you do get a question, go ahead and send it over to me. We can make sure that we get that addressed if it's not already been addressed. And a lot of times those questions do get addressed at some point during the real estate market update. Um, so the big conversation, are we getting back to 3% rates? Short answer, no. That's not going to happen, guys. We are not getting back to the 3% interest rates. I know people have been asking about this a good amount of time, and no, we are not getting back to the 3% interest rates. So keep that in mind, guys. Like I said, that was the thing a while ago. And there's probably going to be new opportunities that present themselves. So that's why it's always staying in the loop of what's going on, working with people that are active in the market, in today's market, versus just as short as just a year ago, 2 years ago. you know, the market has changed. A lot has changed. A lot has changed just within the past 6 months, as in how the transaction of buying and selling a home is handled. So you can only imagine that there's probably going to be more changes, more opportunities for people to get their property sold, for individuals to actually purchase homes. Stay in the know. That's what it comes down to. So the big talk, the 50-year mortgage. So I'll talk lightly on this topic because I will be doing a separate podcast in regards to the 50-year mortgage, so I can go a little bit more in depth. So I'll probably give you guys more like that 30,000 foot perspective today, and then at another date and time, we'll give you more of that 10 to 5,000 foot perspective and dive in a bit more. So, but there's been talk about the national level introducing the 50-year mortgage options to help with affordability. And that's what will make it a little bit more affordable. Because right now, the typical mortgage is 30 years. So it's taking a price of a home and breaking it into a 30-year mortgage. But if you take that same home and you break it into a 50-year mortgage, it drops that monthly investment. So that makes it a bit more affordable for those who are in the market. Now, pros and cons, and like I said, I'm gonna touch lightly on this. So some of the cons that some people are saying, they're just like, well, you're going to be paying interest forever, and you're going to have a longer period of paying interest before it's actually directly that you're going to really see a dividend in that principal. But at the same time, this is an opportunity, and that's why I say, stay tuned. Financial literacy. This is where financial literacy comes in. A lot of people have talked about it before, where they would have a 30-year mortgage where they're making an extra payment each year, and they're paying off their 30-year mortgage in 15 years. So the same concept would still apply to a 50 year. So it's becoming a bit more, having a higher level of financial literacy moving forward. And I think that's going to be a big deal. I know with one of the initiatives that I do personally in the community is financial literacy. I work with another nonprofit organization. They're based in Tampa. It's called Salita's House. They provide these trainings of financial literacy, home buying, especially with my first time home buyers. I work with this organization. I have them sit with this with Salita's House so that they can actually receive the training, and not only just on the financial side, but also the upkeep. How do you, once you get into the home and once you purchase your home, how do you maintain it? What are things that need to be done annually? you know, Things that need to be done monthly, things that may, some simple as the AC filter. We're in Florida, AC filter needs to be changed every 30 days. I don't care if the filter says 90 days. You change it every 30 days just because there's a high level of humidity in Florida, so that AC is constantly working. So changing it every 30 days, that's my true opinion. Changing it every 30 days. But just that little knowledge, and if you don't do that, that AC breaks down. I don't know if you replaced the AC lately, but if you had to replace a complete system, that's anywhere between $6,000 to $10,000. Who has that? And if you're in a hot state like Florida, you have to have AC. There's no, I'm gonna just crack the window. No, that doesn't work. That does not work in the state of Florida. So keep that in mind. So those are some of the pros and cons with the 50-year mortgage. Like I said, it's just the 30,000 foot perspective. Then they were also talking about portable mortgages. So the simple way of explaining a portable mortgage is basically saying, um, this is where you would take your current low interest rate with you to your new home. So if you were going through the process of getting a new home, you would take the current interest rate. A lot of people are on that lower interest rate right now, and then they would have that ported to their new home that they're looking to transition to. That's a win. I don't know about you, but that is a win. That is a win. So I would like that. If you're paying 3% right now, it still keeps homes affordable, still keeps that real estate market moving. So keep that in mind. But like I said, the 3% interest rates, it's not coming back, guys. Let's not even play in that area. It's not coming back. So, commercial stress and where small investors might win. So, you've probably seen headlines saying commercial real estate crisis, but what does it actually mean and where are the opportunities? Yes, where are the opportunities? So, what's going on in the commercial real estate these days? Office vacancy rates in the US are at or near record highs, putting pressure on landlords and lenders. This is very true. I know one of the things that was different about, and this is how you see it on a national level, but I know one of the things that was different about the Tampa Bay area is that they were finding a lot of companies were actually transitioning to Florida. So with them transitioning to Florida, they were they were the vacancies weren't as high as it is in other cities. You know, why is that? So things to pay attention to, especially in our market. We've had a couple of Fortune 500 companies um, state that they were setting up their headquarters here in the Tampa Bay area. It was a lot of big news. Some have made that move. Some have made an adjustment to that move just because of how the market is going. Also, what also has happened is, especially in the Tampa Bay area, they have, because of these storms, the storms that we had last year, um, the baseball team. The baseball team did not play their current season. Their what is that? So what, their 2025, I think that's what 2024, 2025 season at their home stadium, actually dome, just because the Hurricanes literally ripped the top off of the dome and just dumped tons and tons of water on the inside, making a lot of destruction, and a lot of repairs were needed. The politics behind everything was going back and forth, who was paying for what, so they decided to go and have their season at another location. The whole threat of them not finishing out their lease or staying, and I think as of recent, you know, until I see it actually happen, as of recent, it was stated that they do plan on staying at the dome. That's Tropicana Field, that is. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll say we'll see just because I've seen this go back and forth a few times in the past. So it's always something to keep an eye on. But those decisions make that impacts the economy on a local level, because now, say if the team does stay, and they do plan on flourishing and continue to grow and build. They had like a I think $6 to $8 billion development deal that they were looking at and developing that whole area that would bring in different shops, that would bring in different restaurants, and that's impacting the commercial side. But then it's also impacting how the community itself is involved. You know, if there are businesses that they may be going to restaurants too. There may be shopping. There's a lot of people that are coming and visiting. It impacts the tourists. It's a lot that gets impacted, but this is how the commercial is also impacted, because now do you get parking garages? Now, as a business owner, do you get an office space in a very busy city? You know, are you going to continue to expand? You know, it's so much going on. So keep that in mind. Commercials, a lot of opportunity that's coming down the pipeline. I'll keep you guys up to date with that. Where smaller local investors can benefit. Where can they benefit during this process? So repurposing older properties. I can tell you an older property that I'm familiar with. You're getting a lot of co-office spaces. Um, I was working with an organization. They took an old hotel. It's probably like a four-story hotel, older hotel. The rooms at the time, and they were extremely small. If you've ever seen like older, this is how old it was, but it had the greatest bones. The architecture that's in this place is phenomenal. But they turned it into a co-working space, and it works perfect as a co-working space. Now, as a hotel, considering the amenities that hotels have now, especially in the downtown area, it probably would really struggle to make ends meet. But to turn it into a co-working space, that's an example of that. There's different things that are being changed around, bringing new ideas, new storefronts to older storefronts, changing old storefronts to, say, popular restaurants. um, I've seen spas, you know, they're in the perfect location. Now they have like a day spa set up in some of these locations. So this is something that when they're repurposing, this is some of the ideas that are coming down the pipeline with that. So opportunities for that neighborhood level assessed, strip centers, small warehouses, live workspaces that serve local communities. So all kinds of things that are happening. um, you know, I tell you guys every time, I always appreciate you guys tuning in and chiming in for State of the Real Estate Market, just because there's always something to keep you guys updated with. So, once again, I appreciate you guys. This is the November State of the Real Estate Market. Um, it's so much to jam pack in just a short amount of time. So I encourage you guys. Hey, reach out if you guys have questions. Just reach out, send me a message. I'll be happy to respond. Happy to kind of work with you, see what you guys are doing. But it's always a great opportunity for me to be able to touch bases with everyone. So I appreciate you chiming in to the state of the real estate market. If you guys haven't already done so, you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, tell a friend about it. We got a lot that's going on. I would like to proudly say that we have a lot going on. Continue to make things happen, make things grow. And I appreciate you guys continue to support the brand here, State of the Real Estate Market with yours truly. There's more insight coming, especially on the investor side. We have our real estate gold diggers. We're going to be doing a challenge that will be coming up probably within the next 30 days. It's going to be starting in the next 30 days. So keep your eye out. So if you guys are in tune with that, I'll make sure I send information about that event to you guys. So stay tuned. Once again, if you guys are like, well, how do I get a hold of you? Right. I'm a real guy. I'm not AI. Some people have asked me about AI. No, that is how you contact me. Social media at ChrisBrownREPro. I do respond to the DMs that I do receive. Ask your questions. That is a good time because a lot of times that gives me content for my next episode of State of the Real Estate Market, or if it's one of the other episodes that we're working on the investment side or the entrepreneur side, there's always information that's out there. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. Have a great weekend. Happy holidays to everyone. Happy holidays to everyone, and enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, safe travels. Be thankful. Grateful glasses. Keep them on. Keep it moving. Thank you very much. Stay blessed.